Necromancy. You may have heard it here and there. One who is a crooked mage, ugly, disgusting, old, and yet also uses the dark magic in order to raise the dead, in order to raise a giant army, in order to take over the mortal realm and end all life and existence in this puny, putrid realm. Well, that's actually not what necromancy is about. So, sorry, necromancy fans, but you may have been lied to a little bit. Necromancy is actually not, well, as I've said, it's not about that whole thing. It's actually about the exact opposite. Instead of raising the dead, necromancy is more about being involved with the dead in a way that gives them a sense of peace. In necromancy, it can be done in the form of communicating with spirits, but it's mostly involved in the fact that you are trying to put the spirit to rest and allow them to pass on, rather than remaining in this realm for your own specific purposes. Now, necromancy can be used for that sense, but mostly it's just trying to make sure that those who have been deceased have been given their proper funeral rites. So, yeah, necromancy may not be as exciting as raising an army of the dead for some people, but that doesn't necessarily mean necromancy doesn't have its importance. For example, necromancy can be used in the art of divination, as I have stated before, when it came to things such as finding the issues of your problems. It can be used for using methods like the Elder Futhark runes, or just any form of runes that I have displayed in my divination video that I presented in the last episode. So if you want to see that, you could go over there. You'll see the part where necromancy is involved later on in that video. But anyway, the art of necromancy is more about doing anything involved with the dead, but mostly just trying to help them pass on. For example, if you are working within funerary rites, making sure that the dead have had their proper dues, it is incredibly important that they are given the respect that they deserve as they try and pass on. So, for example, say that this person is, well, let's just say they're of a particular religion. Sometimes they want to have a funerary rite that is done in the ways of that particular religion in order to show that they have been given their proper ancestral rights or their proper individual rights that are specific to their religion. And this will help them to pass on into their religious afterlife, basically. So in doing so, you are basically making sure that they are given the best outcome. This might not always be possible, unfortunately, because say, for example, you have a family that believes in one particular religion, or some of them may be divisive, but there is a main cultural religion idea that surrounds them. On the other hand, the individual themselves doesn't practice that religion. So it's here where it can be a little bit more difficult, because if that individual does not practice that religion, but they are subjected to the religious rites of a different religion that they do not practice, that can pose a bit of a problem, and it could actually lead to the spirit not being at peace because they are given a religious funerary rite that they don't belong to, because they're not a part of that religion. It's just that they have been they had that forced on them because of either their family or because of their culture. So it could be something as simple as like being a pagan and being subjected to a Catholic religious funerary rite, which they did not really want, but their family forced upon them anyway. This wouldn't be the only time this would happen, obviously, but because sometimes family can be manipulative and controlling like that. So basically, when it comes to funerary rites and it comes to embalming, it's important to keep in mind to see if there are ways that you can try and see if that person might just need a funerary rite that fits more with them, so that they can properly pass on into the next realm. Other ways that this can be done is, as I've said, embalming, making sure that the body is properly prepared for their afterlife journey, and things like that. So embalming gods could also be very helpful in these sorts of instances. Gods of the underworld, gods who are important for the passage of souls into the afterlife and such, etc., etc. Souls can also be important. The practice of performing magic with souls and spirits can also be important in the fact that you are that you might need their particular help or their advice for a certain thing, which could be used for divination. Their spiritual energy could also be helpful for a particular thing. Leaving offerings for the dead is also a way that you can technically perform necromancy as well, because it is showing that you do in fact respect the dead and that you are paying attention to the fact of their importance. They could be a dead relative. They could be somebody that was close to you, and making these kinds of offerings could be a way of respecting the dead and ensuring that they have a connection to the mortal realm as well. But also ensuring that their peace is not being disturbed. So that part is always the important thing about necromancy. So one final thing I definitely want to mention about necromancy is the fact that, okay, I kind of had this, but I temporarily forgot what I was going to say. I've been thinking about it this entire time. I hate when it happens, really. But necromancy, yeah, it's all about, yes. Necromancy also has an important thing where one of the main things they want to do is deal with exorcisms. And exorcisms, we obviously remember it from basically preventing demonic possessions of living beings. Obviously, that is a part of exorcisms, but at the same time, it's also about making sure that the spirits or other astrally worldly beings are not staying in places that they shouldn't be. So you always want to make sure that, or basically helping putting souls to rest is the idea of exorcisms. It's to make sure that they are able to pass on, really, and so if you happen to come across any spirits or beings that happen to still be stuck in the mortal realm, how you would be able to detect this as somebody who is not very familiar with spiritual presences, it might be a bit difficult. So necromancers who are skilled in the art of exorcism might just be more people who actually have the ability to see them or have the perception to see them, and it would be easier to do so. And regardless of whether you can notice them or whether you have the ability to sense them, it is always important that when you are working in or with exorcisms, that you work by appeasing the spirits, by listening to them or doing some research on the spirit if it is at all possible. Looking into these spirits is always going to be important so that you know exactly what it is that you need to do in order to make sure that the spirit is appeased and that they pass on. Because in many occasions, spirits can be held back by a lost love, by some form of grief or emotion that has them tied to the mortal realm in a sort of negative way that prevents them from passing on. And this could be something that could be a lost love or a connection they were never able to make, or maybe it's just something that involves their funerary rites, as I mentioned before, that they were not given their proper funerary rites. It could also be something that has had their grave disturbed. That is actually one of the biggest reasons that some spirits might just not be able to pass on, is because they may have been disturbed. And that is definitely a huge no-no in necromancy. You don't want to disturb the graves. You want to help people pass on. You want people to be able to move on to the astral realm that they belong to, because their time in the mortal realm has passed. So that is the big thing that you want to make out. You don't want to necessarily... that doesn't mean you can't do anything involved with respecting them or communicating with them, but basically their place is in the astral realm that they belong to. So you want to make sure that they are given that proper respect and that proper rest, and that is always the biggest thing within necromancy. Number one rule is making sure that the dead is respected and that they are given their proper rest and not disturbed. But that is basically all I have to speak of on the art of necromancy. So yes, I know it's not as exciting as raising an army of the dead or anything like that, but it is still important in the fact that it is needed as a way of making sure that those that have passed are given their proper respect and are given their final farewell so that they may be able to fully prepare for their final rest in this realm and move on to the next. So I hope you learned something from this video, and if you liked it, be sure to show it with the like button. Be sure to subscribe if you wish to hear more about magic, if you want to hear more about gods and spirits, and other sorts of things on the art of witchcraft. And until next time, so mote it be, and blessings be.